All right. Anything crazy back there? Cleaning supplies. There we go. What else can you see? There's my dog on the couch. That could be more organized, but it still looks crazy. Welcome to the party, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be your host this evening. Welcome to the Zoom Halloween party. I seem to be hosting now. Let's see. See if you can. Different, crazy. There's not much I can do about that. I'll check your video settings. You want to make yourself look good. We are now officially recording. All right, so the first plan for the evening, while we let people show up and find us, is we want to do some cocktail demonstrations. So, and mocktails. I was thinking, Julie, you actually went to a special house to make a non-alcoholic beverage. And I did. Respect that so much, and I would love if you could teach us how to make this wonderful beverage and tell us how.
Absolutely, it's vegan, so Bonnie can have it.
Nice.
And anyone else who's a vegan. I stole my mother's kitchen because we have 2 large dogs at my house who would have been too much interested. So, yeah. Just so you know, I've sent my elderly parents out of the room for this event, and it's time. It's
party is amazing.
I should bring her in with a headset, right? So it's a vegan hot chocolate. What I'm going to do is actually I'm going to demonstrate by doing this with my my camera. All right. So the way it ties is I actually looked up some recipes for original hot chocolate recipes it actually goes back to about 1670, the first recipes they can find, European recipes. And because my Way of the Laser story was kind of an amalgam of ideas around a city that was sort of steeped in a different century, an older century, plus cyberpunk, I thought I'd go with this stealing elements of an older recipe and then make it vegan. And so it's sort of like both. So this is going to be my demo. If you're ready, here we go. We have a cup here. So you start with a large cup because I'm not going to drink hot chocolate if there's not much of it. You're going to take, not that I'm selling any brand of cocoa, but I'm pretty sure this is vegan, but I'm going to take 2 whole tablespoons, my friends, of Dutch chocolate. All right. Which I tell you now that I've started making hot chocolate, I'm going through one of these a week. I'm taking my partner's sugar, which I believe is also vegan sugar with no bone meal in it. But you can, don't need to do it. I'm not vegan, I just am going to make it this way. And a tablespoon of that. This is not a sweet recipe at all. Then, excitingly enough, this is the part where you just say, put some in. So I'm putting some in cinnamon, about that much, which is probably like 1/8 of a teaspoon. I'm putting in more cloves than you think I should need, because this is the key ingredient to this. It actually, I think, is what was interesting to me about the old recipes. And a bit of salt, right? Now, here I am. We're at the powder part of the recipe, right? The first thing I do is I mix it together. The next thing I'm going to do is take my mom's kettle. Here it is. I'm going to put in just a little bit of water because you can end up, this is the non-cook cook talking to you guys, by the way, but you can end up with lumps. So you want to like mix everything together until you have kind of like a nice goopy amount in the bottom. Ta-da. I haven't got to the, and then there's so much cocoa in here that really can fill up the mug. I'm showing you like neither the cup nor my face. That's excellent. I'm doing a really good job here. So hang on a sec. You can fill up the mug quite a bit with the, about, what I do is 2/3 hot water. And then to go with that, as I put all these things down out of the way, I'm also using almond coconut milk. So to 1/3 almond coconut milk. Now the beauty of this is I like this a lot. It's delicious, but if you guys make this and you don't like it, I'm not here to hear about it either. But I highly, but yeah, I've been making this all week. So this is the inspired by the old, but containing the modern hot chocolate.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Beautiful.
We'll continue our conversation in just a moment.
All right.
This is Rishi.
So welcome everybody.
Construction is underway in downtown Gallup for
Who is
Cole
that?
Avenue Commons, an infrastructure
Behind you.
project that will transform 2 blocks of Cole Avenue into a
What's going on?
plaza-style street.
Someone.
Part of that street may be
Everybody
closed,
down
but
here.
businesses will remain open.
There we go.
All right. So would anyone like to go? I can go next for cocktails if somebody would like to go next. Is
For
anyone
more information,
volunteer?
you may call
Volunteer
505-879-0.
Anyone volunteer to go next for cocktails? No. All right. I'm going to go get my thing over there. I'll be right back.
I can't wait to see what he comes up with. Oh, he's quick. Okay, I was gonna go, but
Ah,
So this is my thing. I can't
oh,
see
wow.
very well.
Prepared.
I'm a little prepared. So I've got some grapefruits. I've got a few slices of ginger, and I've got some thyme. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with palomas. Do you guys know palomas?
Oh, yeah.
Palomas, they're wonderful. They're like a grapefruit soda with a little tequila. My hope was to make an EVIL in Technicolor drink was to do like a paloma, but to make an evil paloma, a paloma that is evil. So I'm gonna get my ingredients, the rest of my ingredients here. They're right over here.
So does anyone
Does
have
everyone
a
make-
signature drink?
That was what I was going to ask.
So this is grapefruit soda
Ooh.
and ginger beer. Very exciting.
Ooh.
And then of course, now I will tell you about tequila. This is important. I've learned that the difference between cheap tequila and really good tequila is more dramatic than any other beverage I know. If you get cheap tequila, it's going to taste like plastic. If you get really good tequila, it's going to taste like the flower and the nectar of the desert is going to be beautiful. Get good tequila. Don't hurt yourself. Why would you hurt yourself with a plastic drink? Get good tequila. And I just got a basic citrus. Usually for palomas, you don't always need triple sec. If you want it a little sweeter, you can add a little like triple sec, citrus liqueur, something. So I'm going to do that. Let me get a cup and some ice, and I'll be right back.
I once had the worst tequila. I was a senior in college, and we were shopping very cheaply. And I think it was Tom Potter's. It was so bad. Nobody could drink it. It was absolutely, would just like make you vomit when you tasted it. And we had all these fruit flies in our apartment at one point in time, and we started putting the tequila in a spray bottle and spraying the fruit flies out of the air. And it was just such terrible tequila. It just killed them on contact. So don't drink that. I think,
Oh,
I
man.
don't think it's good.
So all I'm
I
going to
think
do
any
here,
tequila will actually have that same effect.
Well, probably it's the alcohol.
I'm going to take only about half this bottle. See, if I was making a paloma, usually I would do the whole thing. I'm not doing paloma. I'm going to do just half. Do about half. Not science. It's just a cocktail. Now I'm going to add, the evil part is the ginger. See, ginger adds a little bit of heat. The ginger beer in particular adds a little bit of heat and presence and oomph. So I'm going to do half that too. And ginger and citrus is wonderful. It's a wonderful combination as well. All right, now I've got my thyme. These are washed, ready. These actually came from my front yard, fresh thyme. Boom, add a little heat, a little presence, a little evil. I got some sliced ginger, bit of sliced ginger ready to go. Just drop that in there. I'm gonna take one of these grapefruits, squeeze that in, squeeze it in, try not to make a big mess. Take maybe one more, squeeze that in, try not to make a big mess. Now I'm gonna just kind of mix it up, try not to make a big mess. Definitely making a mess. There you go, evil Paloma.
Now, Joe, I have a question. Before you put the thyme in, did you like crush it at all to like?
Yes,
I thought maybe
I did
that's
bruise it a little bit, but not as much as I would normally.
okay.
This is fresh from the garden like an hour ago. It'll be pretty strong.
Yeah.
So just like a little, just like a gentle pet, like a.
Yeah.
But there you go, evil Paloma. And it's
you send some
fantastic,
through your
delicious.
thing?
And as what'll happen with this as well, I'm going to sip this a while, and the ginger is, because there's the fresh ginger in it, it's just kind of get more evil as the night progresses. So it seeps in evil. It's going to creep out.
And because it has citrus and ginger, it is of course good for you.
Oh, wonderful! It's very healthy, and tequila is also very healthy. And I actually did not put the
Anti-inflammatory.
anything in this yet.
Yes.
This is just the like. I actually forgot to put the tequila in it. Look at that.
It's good enough.
You can tell I'm a real cocktail person, right? I totally forgot, but I'm just going to go ahead and add it. There you go. Some tequila, one of those. It's getting more evil as the night progresses.
Just like the rest of us.
Just
So
like
it was a mocktail first and then a cocktail.
now, and it was delicious. I was like, this is delicious, but it's missing something. Of course it's missing something. I forgot to add the actual alcohol.
So are you going to be putting out a recipe book with all these recipes?
Probably not, no. But I will be thanking my wife very much, who's off screen, handing me this wonderful cocktail stirrer, helping me out. And I'm only, see, I did the top one for the tequila. I'm gonna do the bottom one for the citrus liqueur here. There we go. So I'm not trying to make it too sweet. If you want it sweeter, add more citrus liqueur. Got my little stirrer. There we go. That's better. Way more evil, significantly more evil. That's a lot better. There you go. There you go. So that's my cocktail. So does anyone else have a cocktail recipe that they can share? Bonnie, please, by all means, go for it. Let's make sure you're on here. Yeah, you're on. Bonnie, I'm having trouble hearing you. Painful. That was very evil.
Major feedback.
Major feedback.
That was awesome.
Is this any better?
Oh, I love live events.
Perfect.
That's better.
Wonderful.
Okay.
We are live. We are recording all of this. I do not know how to video edit.
Definitely.
anything.
Good.
Definitely
All
awake
right,
now.
here's Roxanne's Corpse Reviver to go with my vampire story. And so what you want to do is take a bit of absinthe
Ooh.
and you just drop it into the glass, swirl it around, try to get like all of it coated, and then you're going to dump it out.
Presumably in the waiting lips of some evil creature.
Yes, exactly. And then the rest is pretty simple. I have some skull-shaped ice cubes, all very Halloween-y over here. Drop them in a shaker, which also has skulls on it, just in case you thought I wasn't committed. All right, and then the rest of it is pretty simple. It's just 1 part gin, and I'm going to do 1 ounce. One ounce triple sec, which is an orange liqueur. Other orange liqueurs would work as well.
Your favorite orange liqueur?
Me?
Yeah.
I think triple sec might be the only kind I've tried.
Okay.
Honestly.
Grand Marnier is this one.
And then Lillet Blanc, which is a fortified wine. I read online that if you don't have a fortified wine, you might be able to recreate it somewhat just using like a kind of sweet wine with citrusy flavors. So 1 ounce of Lillet Blanc. But they will have Lillet Blanc at any liquor store that you go. And 1 ounce lemon juice. All right. And then if you have a shaker that leaks, you want to wrap it in a towel.
That's advice.
I could have used that advice earlier. I definitely leaked a little bit with my really fast makeshift mason jar here.
Oh yeah.
But I didn't hit the computer.
All right. All right. Pour it in quickly before it leaks all over the place. And that is how you make a corpse reviver number 2.
Yum.
I don't know what happened to the other corpse revivers. This is the one that I like.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Jareth from the Goblin Gang.
Yeah.
Wonderful costume, by the way. Love the costume. Love the labyrinth. Bonnie is cool.
Odd piece, Bonnie.
I do put the codpiece in when I go out trick-or-treating.
Yes. That's a trick and a treat.
Yeah.
So, okay, does anyone else have a cocktail or a mocktail recipe that they can share with the party?
I'm afraid to go after everybody else. I don't know.
Go for it, bud. You can do it.
Oh no. Okay, mine's really short, so I'll do it. Like, if anybody who knows me knows that like I brewed all the beer for my wedding. I really don't drink a lot of hard alcohol. The only thing that I actually like is like whiskey on the rocks, like a good scotch. But tonight I'm gonna mix it up, and this is usually what my wife drinks. So first, a little tonic water, especially with the lime, and then fresh lime and some cheap gin. And what you're gonna do is you're just gonna show that to the glass. And then with a quick twist, have your favorite beer. That's it. Favorite cocktail right there. So, and this happens to be a winter warmer. It just came out, and it is the best beer of the year that you can buy. You can probably make it better.
What is it?
It's called a Shipyard Prelude.
Okay.
It's a winter warmer. It's just all delicious malts and just a little bit of bittering hops.
Yum.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So somebody please redeem this because this went off the rails really.
Well, that was definitely a trick or treat worthy cocktail recipe. Does anyone else have a recipe that they would like to share to demonstrate to the people to get into the Halloween spirit and maybe imbibe a little bit before the readings start? I'm looking at faces. I'm seeing no one volunteer.
I have one.
You have one. Great. Wonderful.
Well, actually, first I'll drop my background so you can possibly see what I'm doing. But I will also, however, admit to the fact that I am in my office and I don't really have tons of space for drink making. So I kind of cheated and tried to prepare a little bit first. So I kind of have most of the ingredients in a cocktail shaker here. But this is, I call it the Christopher Lee. I figured Hammer Horror, that was appropriate. It is a version of a white chocolate martini. If it works the way I hope it will, because I will also admit to it not having practiced this very well, it will turn into a lovely bleeding drink. But basically you put 1.5 ounces of vanilla vodka, 1 ounce of white chocolate liqueur. I like to use the Godiva stuff, and 1 ounce of cream, and shake it in your nice little cocktail shaker and put it, cocktail shaker that I now can't get open. I'm doing great here.
Apparently it's not a very nice
spilling everywhere. I feel like I should have come prepared with a towel.
If only Bonnie could pass you hers.
Now, Chambord, which provides the bleeding effect.
Ooh, very nice. That's a raspberry liqueur, right?
Yes, it is. I'm
Wonderful.
going to attempt to, well, I don't know if I can actually turn my camera so you can see what I'm doing, but in theory, just a regular spoon, and you kind of place it against the side of the glass, and you just drop a few drops of Chambord onto the spoon so that they, oh shoot, well, they're supposed to drop nicely down in the glass, but I just spilled them everywhere.
Well,
and then it's supposed to give the
stuff.
nice effect of something
Dripping blood.
bleeding,
Extra bloody.
which I don't even know if it's going to show up on Zoom. It's not really, but you'll just have to take my word for it that the red does kind of make a nice little bleeding effect in there.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. That's lovely.
Extra rare.
Hey. Does anyone else have Marie, did you just pop back in again? Do you have a cocktail that you would like to share with everyone before the readings start?
I'm actually really low on alcohol, so right now what I'm drinking is sparkling water with a shot of Saint Germain, which I highly recommend. Elderflower liqueur.
All right.
Class
That's good. It helps. It's really good for flu season. It's very good for your sinuses. So definitely support that. Wendy, do you have any tips or anything for everybody? Any recipes, anything?
Well, one thing that we just started trying and we are big fans of, we make vegan hot cocoa basically exactly like Julie's, although I do put a little salt in. I think that kicks it up a tiny bit. But if you're not feeling in the mood to have spicy, but you do want it boozy, we've been adding Screwball peanut butter whiskey, which actually adds more of like a caramel note. So you get kind of like a caramel hot chocolate kind of thing going on.
Very nice.
And I totally recommend that. Like it is really great for snuggling on the couch and watching a spooky movie.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Okay, so it's almost 8 o'clock. I think it's high time to give away another book. I am thinking of a number between 1 and 10. I have it on my hands right now below the screen. First one in the chat window, Karen, 9, you win. Karen.
Oh, nice.
So Karen, I know you have Way of the Laser. Do you have EVIL in Technicolor? You will soon have EVIL in Technicolor. Congratulations. I will send it your way. I will make a note of that right now. When I have a giant cutting board in front of my computer. Let me move the computer, the cutting board, then I will make a note of it. And okay, and we can move ahead to the next series of our festivities.
Doggy.
Pet spotting.
I hope that we get a cameo from Sullivan.
He is in bed right now. He is past his bedtime. That is why I am able to do this.
My daughter might be dropping by in a second to say hi, so I get to see her.
Okay, so I'm going to make a note of right now of sending Karen a.
Oh, I already got that, Joe. Don't worry about it.
Got it. Good. Okay, great. So, how do you guys feel? How does the party feel? Are you guys ready to have? Do we have any more cocktail recipes to share? Anybody? Okay, and I'm seeing no face. Natania, anything? Okay, no.
I just drink a crap ton of tea, so I just have Earl Grey with me today. So
okay, so we'll just pretend that you put some vodka in it and call it a day. There you go.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so
You're
all right,
Earl Grey, right?
Yeah. I believe we are ready to move on to the next phase of our planned festivities this evening, which of course was readings. I believe that I heard that Melissa, you needed to go first.
I don't have to go first, but I'm just a wimp on more East Coast, so.
No, it's fine. It's okay if we go first. I just want to. So what I'm going to be doing is we're looking for 8 minutes, and then I'm definitely read for 8 minutes. I'm going to run a timer. We have actually a lot of people here tonight, which is wonderful. We're so happy to see you. But 8 minutes is the amount of time to read. And please let us know a little bit about yourself, and the story that you'll be reading, where it's from, and we'd love to hear more about you.
I heard from a little birdie that this was a debut of some sort. Are we the lucky first ones to hear this story?
Yeah. So
that's amazing.
I have a new Hope C thriller coming out December 1st. So at the last minute, I tried to tantalize my people by saying, this is the first time I'm going to release any part of it because it's on pre-order now. So you can't see the preview. So I was like, come on. And I know at least one friend came by. So that was awesome because I only put it out like 2 hours ago because I'm a very last minute person. I'm an emergency doctor and just my life is kind of crammed. So this is my series about a resident doctor named Hope C, who solves crime in her spare time, as one does. And she has flown to Cairo with her fiance. And it starts off with a small mystery before it builds up. So the name of the book is Scorpion Scheme by Melissa Yee. And thank you, Wendy, for the thumbs up on the chat. 90 minutes before our world screeched to a standstill, I hauled my suitcase outside the Cairo International Airport and squinted as the Egypt desert wind desiccated my eyeballs and whipped the ends of my black hair into my face. John Tucker laughed and pushed a strand behind my ear. You okay? I'm alive. Hard to believe that we landed safely on the opposite side of the world from Canada, near the only remaining seventh wonder of the ancient world. I didn't want to jinx it. I am magnificent. Tucker spread out his arms wide, relishing the mild January afternoon sun, not to mention his own magnificence. I leaned back to make sure he didn't knock off my glasses, but I couldn't help smiling and shaking my head at the pale skin of his neck and his wheat blonde hair. Sometimes I found it hard to believe that I ended up with such a milky dude. Tucker called up to the wisps of clouds in the blue sky overhead. We could climb Mount Sinai. We could visit the Valley of Kings and Queens. I adjusted the backpack straps digging into my shoulders and double-checked the suitcase between my legs. We could figure out what happened to Jessup. Ms. Isabella Antoon had assured us that a guide named Jessup would meet us at the airport and that our 1-month medical elective would be perfectly arranged by Sarkay Industries, a healthcare software corporation. I slipped my iPhone out of my pocket, checked my blank notifications, and called Jessup again. Then I left a voicemail again. Tucker wrapped his arm around me and smacked a kiss on my cheek. Thanks for trusting me on this, Hope. A free trip to Egypt. How could we turn this down? Free lunch, I said, as in no such thing as. Gift horse, he replied with an extra arm squeeze, meaning no looking in the mouth. Isabel had refused to tell us why Sarkay Industries had picked us for a free visit. Why me and Tucker, two no-name family medicine residents halfway through what used to be called an internship? Someone's phone rang. Oh, sorry. And then they got on a bus because Jessup never met them and Tucker knows someone whose grandmother might be able to put them up for the night. So they're on the bus and Hope was falling asleep and someone's phone rang. I didn't recognize it as Tucker's until he contorted himself to pull it out of his jeans pocket. Oh, hi, Jessup. What? You're at the baggage claim? We missed you. Maybe because Hope got sprayed by a toilet. I straightened up, my eyes now open and accusing. Tucker ditched his smile fast. Scratch that. We're taking a bus to Giza. Oh, you want us to get off? Where? He craned his neck. I'm not sure exactly where we are. I think we're coming up on the Egyptian Museum. Hang on, I'll open a map. I reached for my own phone. Wow, Jessup. We finally got a hold of Jessup. I glanced out the window at the setting sun. No pyramids in sight. I pressed the home button on my phone to bring up a map. And I felt, as much as heard, a boom that rocked the bus and punched my eardrums. Bus windows rattled. The reverberations thundered in my chest and strangely in my jaw, which twisted in its sockets. Bomb. Someone who tried to bomb us. I knew it. I literally felt it in my bones. Okay, let's begin.
So when's this coming out again?
December 1st.
December 1st. Very exciting. And do you have a pre-order link for everybody that you can post in the chat?
Oh, I will put pre-order. We're not doing pre-orders on Amazon, but the other sites are up. And then yeah, and then I'll post in the chat. And I'll just say the first book, Code Blues, is out and it's on sale for 99 cents right now. So if you want to start at book 1, then you can do that. And then if I had time, I was thinking of reading my werewolf thriller. So if you wanted something more seasonal, Wolf Ice is, and you're not offended by sex, this has got the sexy werewolves. Okay.
Okay. Wonderful. That was
werewolves.
Okay,
Yay, werewolves.
Thank you. Sexy werewolves. Okay, so that was wonderful. Thank you very much. Do we have a volunteer to go next? I'm looking up at the thing. I'm going to volunteer somebody. I'm going to volunteer Karen. Karen, would you like to go next?
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
So I was going to be for
First
my.
off, I got to tell you, I really love the monkey cabinet. That's great.
Thank you. I was going to read from my story in Way of Blazer, but then I realized probably most of you have read it already. So now I'm going to read a Halloween type story instead. Are you guys ready?
We're ready.
Absolutely.
What the Dollhouse Said. The first time I see Eleanor, she gets on the bus in uneven pigtails, wearing a faded flower print dress. Don't sit by me, new girl, I think. Don't sit by me. Billy pokes me in the back of the head with a pencil, tries to make me cry, but he sees her quick and stops. I know he's watching her. Coyote boys always see what's vulnerable and trembling, and she probably knows that because she sits right behind the driver. I skip that seat and save it for another fifth grader, Ralphie, who's small and tender pickings, and gets on at the next stop. He has a hard time because his brother beats him up too. Us losers always look out for each other, but that's hard to do before knowing predator from prey. Things we find out about Eleanor, the hand-me-downs are because of a bunch of teenage sisters living in her house. Unexpected noises make her scream real loud, and she cries during Animal Planet videos in class because she has a pet rabbit named Lucy. Coyotes can't resist tears, and they are merciless to poor Eleanor. I feel real sorry for her, even though she draws them all, even Billy, away from me and Ralphie. She cries more than I think anyone can at first. Still, she's the only kid who visits the dollhouse. I don't know how the dollhouse got there. It leans against the base of a wide old maple tree on the edge of the playground. It smells strongly of cats, like my aunt's house, and it's white as antlers. It looks kind of like it grew out of the root knuckles of the apple tree, almost by accident. It twists like grandma's fingers, but the spines and knobs come together to make something that looks like a dollhouse just the same, with an open door, windows, steeple roof. There's always a small animal rotting there, tufts of fur missing. At first, Eleanor seems scared of it like the rest of us. The coyote girls, they move in packs too, say she wears pilgrim dresses and tell her she smells like Goodwill. The coyote boys throw gum in her hair or capless markers that leave green and black splotches on her clothes. She finds out quick when the coyote boys are chasing her to give her cooties or pull her pigtails. They won't come close to the dollhouse. I feel sorry for her, watching her cower away from it, yet close enough to the dollhouse to keep back the coyotes. But even in her apple root circle of safety, she's my shield. With her on the playground to taunt, the others leave me and Ralphie alone, content with slinging insults. They're held apart, Eleanor and the circling coyotes, but I know it won't last. The leaves in the schoolyard turn red and brown. The apples grow red and heavy on the boughs, and coyotes are smart hunters. She stops crying before the apples are ripe. Even when Billy pulls the wing off a fly during times tables, Eleanor doesn't cry anymore. When he smashes it across her spelling test, she hands it in anyway. Bug guts, red smeared across, definitely. Her face like a stone. She spends every recess at the dollhouse, gets closer and closer. Just before the apples are ready, low enough to pull, I see her with her ear pressed against the attic window like a mouth telling her secrets. The coyote girls avoid her. Maybe girl coyotes are smarter than boy coyotes. And there's more, but I'll stop there.
Ooh, it's so good. That's so good.
Thank you.
Wonderful, Karen. Can you tell us more about that story? Is it out anywhere? Can we read the rest of it?
You can listen to the rest of it on Pseudopod.
Wonderful. Can you?
I'll find a link.
I would love to see a link in the chat. And can you tell us more about that story? We've got about 3 minutes left. Can you tell us more about your work? What are you working on? What are you doing?
I have a number of novels that are like sort of in progress, but mostly during COVID, I'm just like showing up for life every day, like the most of the rest of you, I'm sure. Trying to find my pants and where to put food in my mouth. You know how it is.
I was very excited to put on nice pants today, I have to say.
Yay! I got to put shoes on and leave the house yesterday for the first time in like a week and a half.
I haven't worn a tie in over a year. So so that's wonderful. Thank you very much, Karen. Do find a link and put it in the chat. We would love to hear the rest of that story. It sounded awesome.
Thank you.
So I need a volunteer, or I will volunteer someone.
I'll do it.
Okay, I saw Patrice's hands first, so I'm gonna go with Patrice. Patrice, are you ready to go?
I am ready to go. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
All right, perfect. So I was going to read from a story from Way of the Laser, but as somebody pointed out, most people have already heard it or read it. So I made a game time decision, and I am going to read a horror story because of Halloween.
Wonderful.
It's called Caro Comes Home. And hopefully, Joe, you'll keep track of time, correct?
I'm timing you now. Go on.
Perfect. Caro comes home. Caro met Ray at a small village pub on the approach to D-Day. He sat with his fellow Yanks at a corner table. She sat at the end of the bar, nursing her sherry. His mates were all bold talk and bluster, their accents and loud voices shocking in the quiet pub, getting them looks from the locals. Ray wasn't loud, but he could make his voice heard. She liked his drawl and pale eyes and his measured way of looking around him. When he left his fellow Yanks to come over to her, she smiled before turning around to meet his eyes. Ray Hayes, he said, reaching out a hand. His uniform emphasized his broad shoulders and lanky form. Taking her time, she tilted her head to the side and only then accepted his hand. Was that a flinch? She kept contact as he recovered. Good to meet you, Ray Hayes, she said. You have a name, darling? I'd like to know who I'm going to propose to. He grinned, and behind them, the U.S. boys hooted and hollered. In that case, Caro Hayes. His smile was warm and broad, much as hers was. I like the sound of that, Mrs. Hayes. Do you dance? I'd love to, she said, and she slid off her stool and they swayed to imaginary music in a twilight corner of the small pub. Later that night, in her small attic room over the greengrocer's, Caro's eyes were open and unseeing. She could feel Ray's heart beating in his chest, hear the rush of fluids throughout his body, smell the rich sweetness of his organs. He stirred and she moved, and when he opened his drowsy eyes and smiled at her, she smiled back. Wait for me, Caro Hayes, he said. Promise me. I promise, Ray Hayes, she said. She shushed him, and he closed his eyes again. If anyone were to look up at the small attic window, and if there were enough light to see by, they would see the still form of a U.S. soldier in the embrace of a monster, tenderly lapping at his face. Ray wrote her letters. He survived D-Day and Bastogne and the end of the war, and telegraphed that he was coming back for her. She wore her travel suit and sat on her suitcase waiting for him, eyes unseeing, body unoccupied, for 2 weeks. When he rapped at the door, she stirred, smiled wide. Come in, she called, her voice lazy. He opened the door and stepped inside. He was thinner, sharp-skinned and bony. His uniform hung off his frame, and the easy smile hid something darker now, something that haunted him far more than she did. Hey, baby, she said. He didn't respond at first, then said, didn't think you'd wait, huh? She got up off the suitcase and wrapped her arms around him, kissing him. He resisted at first, but she persisted, and he relaxed in her arms, heart beating hard, shoulders slumped as he cried hot tears down her neck. They put $50 down on the American dream on a house in a new development that had been cotton fields just a few years before. Their neighbors were ex-GIs and their pretty wives, starting families and new lives, some going to the university and some going straight to work. Ray left each day. Caro sat in her kitchen, silent, unseeing, unmoving until he returned, and she would stir at last, her smile lazy and wide. He'd smile back to see her. "Is that you, Ray?" she would say. "You bet. What did you do all day, darling?" "Just waited for you, Ray," she'd say back, and he'd sink into her embrace. After supper, when the heat lifted, everyone went outside. Ray and the other husbands worked on their new cars or gossiped across the fence line. Wives sat on their front porches, rocking and fanning themselves. Over those first months, the wives increased, their bodies thickening and rounding, and their babies started to emerge. Ray looked upon the pregnant wives with a regret Caro could sense. As with many human emotions, it had no impact on her except that afterwards he was sometimes distant from her, though never for long, she saw to that. It was the same with the gossip. She smiled and nodded to the wives, and their whispers were like smoke. Nothing mattered. She had Ray. Ray was hers. When the new couple moved in at the end of the street, the gossip about Caro ended. Marie was lush and rounded with reddest lips and bluest eyes. Her hair had an unearthly shine, iridescent in the Texas sun. Marie's husband, Jeff, was in a wheelchair. He was spindly and pale, almost more insect-like than Marie. He spoke little, and his eyes were filmed. Marie and Caro, Jeff and Ray. The two couples didn't speak, but they didn't have to. They looked at one another, and they recognized. If Caro could scold, if she even knew what that meant, she would have. Marie was too hungry, too eager. She should have left something, but instead, Jeff was almost comatose. Caro didn't want to take all of Ray. She husbanded him. Sure enough, as Jeff waned, Marie looked on Ray with hunger, and Ray responded. And Caro felt her monstrous nature begin to itch at her human skin. Day was the most dangerous time. Caro sat in a stupor, cocooned in her human form, waiting for the shadows to lengthen and Ray to come home. In the summer, with the sun lingering and the heat suffusing the house, she was harder to rouse, more stupid for a long time before she came back to herself. Only after she fed did she regain her strength. The afternoon that Ray didn't come home, it was full night before Caro opened her eyes. The kitchen was dark except for the backyard light, insects zinging themselves into mad oblivion. She was lightheaded and giddy with hunger, and it took long moments before she was aware and understood that Ray was not there. Caro stood, her skin split. What was birthed was shiny and wet and new, sharp-jointed legs trailing. When she went through the screen door, she left behind a slick trail.
So, Patrice, we have 1 minute left. I wanted to find out if you could take a moment to just tell us more about your work, what you have coming out, where I could find more of this wonderful, creepy story. So if you could just share that with everybody.
Well, the story isn't out yet. It came about because there is a house in our neighborhood that is the creepiest house ever. It looks like no one lives there, but there's always a light on. And for people who know the neighborhood in North Austin where I live, these were all post-war development houses. And this house is just the scariest house you've ever seen in your life. So I know that there are monsters in that house. I'm sure they're a very nice couple who lives there. My current work, Fog Season and the Sisters Maderos are out now. Some upcoming things that are happening, but not ready to talk about them yet.
Of course. Could you post links to the wonderful Madero sisters?
Sure, I will do that.
In chat, I think everyone would love to read those. They're great.
Thank you so much.
They're a lot of fun. It's very like, it feels very, very Italian in a lot of ways. And it's like, there's the two sisters that are trying to rebuild their family fortune. I think they're fantastic. Everybody should check them out. They're a lot of fun.
Thank you so much.
Okay. All right, do we have a volunteer to go next?
I'll go next.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, Paul. Timer has started. You're going to be reading from The Silence That Binds?
Yeah, I was originally going to read my Way the Laser story, but since it's written like a chat transcript, I don't know if that would work well read out loud. So
no, you should read the novel that's forthcoming. While you're doing that, I'm going to go look in my email to see if I can find the cover art again.
Oh yeah. I'm excited. This is going to be
Yeah,
cool.
I think
Yeah. All right, I will start. A line of lanterns snaked through the pine trees, past their temple and out towards the hollow stones. They were not used to doing this alone, unwatched, and without Naomi leading them forward. She was always one to start the chant and to begin the ritual. She had a presence they all felt, like a fire roaring forward in her hands and in her voice. When she moved, the trees felt it. When she sang, the earth felt it. And when she spoke, the silence shook in fear. And now she was gone, and there's a hole in the world in the shape of her presence. Some wept silently as they walked, others hummed the final chant, and some near the far end of the line whispered prayers to the unseeing to keep Naomi safe. The lanterns twitched in their nervous grasps as the lights elongated for one brief moment. Mazzy watched near the edges of the procession, her dark hair up in a circle of braids, her hood thrown back over her shoulders. She had more confidence than the others, unshaken, it seemed, by the events of the last day. Like she was prepared to do what needed to be done, Naomi or no Naomi. Someone who didn't know her might see her as cold and uncaring, but this was not the case at all. She missed her more than anyone else. Naomi had taken her in personally, raised her after her parents were left dead and broken by the curse. She spent many a terrified night in Naomi's bed, especially after Naomi's wife died, and they're both crushed by the loss of their families. They took to each other and bonded in a way that Naomi had never bonded with the other of the orphans. Mother, a word Naomi had never let her say, but she felt it and held it close to her heart. What shall I do, Mother Naomi? Shall I search for you? Shall I do nothing at all? Mazzy raised her lantern and felt something cold awaken in the night. She kept a fierce face, sealed up her heart like iron. Her amber eyes glinted a bit, and she searched for movements in the shadows. She kept her hand steady, straight. The lantern not moving, not flickering, and she would show no weakness. The others needed her strength. Keep going, a voice whispered from behind her. Talia, talented and young, just in her second decade, and already could fire a bow better than Mazzy, and already could chant a ghost song better than Mazzy. Not that she was jealous, no, she was proud of Talia, proud like an older sister, and Talia treated her like an older sister, kept her near at all times, became jealous of the closeness Mazzy had with Naomi. She laughed at all the wrong moments, cheered when she thought the world was going right, and smiled at her in only the way a little sister could smile. Happy, with a tiny bit of contempt slipping through. I'm not sure I can keep going, Mazzy said, and stopped on the spiral path going uphill. They were the last two, the line ahead of them like fireflies in the dark. You have to. Come on, we need to do this. Even without Naomi, you know it's right. It's what needs to be done. The ways of the seers are that way for a reason, and we have an oath to the ghosts. Mazzy spun her lantern. Look around, look, doesn't this feel different to you? It's not the ghost, but there's something else here. Something is stalking us in the woods. Can't you feel it? Talia held her own lantern up, revealing the burn scars on her forearms, circular and deep, from when the fire burned her family alive. She'd only escaped by crawling out, gasping for breath and hiding among the rubble. They had torched the house while her family slept, saying they were cursed with demon sick, and didn't want it spreading out to the others of the city. She knew to stay hidden and calm, and to the people had gotten tired and left them dead in the smoldering ash. She crawled all the way out here, to the only people she knew could help her, to Naomi and the seers. In the flickering lamplight, something moved, just out of reach. Talia gasped, her hand quick to her mouth to cover the sound. Already the line of lanterns were ahead of them, close to the ghost stones already. I see it. But shouldn't we keep going? They only seem to be watching us. Mazzy pulled her hood over her head. The gray cotton was outlined with knotted designs in gold and green. No, they're not just watching. They're hunting us. Hunting. Mazzy pulled out her bow and notched an arrow just in case. Talia nodded, did the same, but kept her own hood shouldered and loose. They blew out their lanterns and placed them on the ground. Then they hurried up quick, slid behind the others, weapons at the ready, breathing shallow breaths. They'd be in the shadows now, protecting their sisters in pilgrimage. And that's the end of that scene. So I don't know how much more
It's a good
time.
place to stop. You got about 3 minutes left there.
Okay,
so
yeah.
I would love it. So obviously this is a book that we're publishing. If I wasn't here tonight, I would actually be trying to edit it really quickly again. I'd be editing it right now. So, you know, I had a fun night either way. So so Paul, could you tell us a little bit more about the book?
Yeah, I mean, funnily enough, I had written it like 5 years ago, been working on it since then, but it's very prescient to everything that's going on now. I mean, there's a curse that moves about like a plague, and there's even a part in the story where everyone's wearing masks in order to make it so that they're not infected and things like that. And so it's very oddly like current today, even though I wrote it a bit ago. And I've always just really, it's just been one of my favorite stories, and I've been just hammering at it because I feel like there's something really special at the core of it. And so I'm so happy that it's coming out next year.
We're very excited too, and it's coming out. I think now I am the worst person in the organization. I don't have the calendar in front of me. I want to say April. Did we say April?
Hey,
we did. So. Yes.
Great. I'm glad I remember that correctly, as if I was in charge of that project. But no, it's really fantastic. I hope everybody gets a chance to check it out. And obviously, you guys saw the cover in chat. If you didn't, go over to chat. I posted it in the chat. Awesome. The artist is Ira Vinegar. She's a very old friend of my wife's actually, and she's just amazing. She did the line art for EVIL in Technicolor.
Oh,
and she also did the silhouettes that you saw. If you saw Galactic Hellcats, she was also part of that. So a very talented artist, and I'm definitely getting friend rates from her, and I really need to pay her more money. So anyway, so buy some books so I can pay people better, please. Okay, do we have any volunteer for the next reading? I see Bonnie's hand. Bonnie, you are the winner.
Awesome. Well, so I'm gonna go ahead and assume that some people, but not everyone. Hi. Oh, it's so good to see all the Stone Coast people and all the people that I haven't seen in so long. So I'm gonna assume that some people have also read the EVIL in Technicolor story, and I'm gonna read my sequel, which is a novella that I just finished, and I am querying agents. And so it takes place exactly after the end of the short story or the novelette that's in EVIL in Technicolor, but it should stand alone as well. And so this novella tells the story of the Monsters 3, so the 3 lady monsters who are in the novelette. Oh, and it's called Glorious Fiends. As far as Roxanne could gather from the book she scoured within the stacks of the Great Library of Evil, there were 5 ways to resurrect a murdered monster. Roxanne paced the dusty library floor. Each method held a sense of the dramatic. She sunk her teeth into the fresh heart of her latest victim. The woman who had listened for an hour to Roxanne's tale of grief had housed such a tender heart. Roxanne ruminated over the choices for the 100th time. Her first option, she could stitch her friends, Mix Hyde and Medusa, new bodies out of old parts. She could spread them on an operating table and wait for lightning to strike. Roxanne would look amazing bathed in a lightning flash, and how she would command her squad of ghoulish creatures. Mix Hyde would never let Roxanne hear the end of it, trapped in such a hideous form, and Medusa, well, Roxanne kicked the stone head left behind after Professor Abraham Lee Bansing's victory over the Monsters 3. Plus, it was Mix Hyde who did the mad scientist shtick. Roxanne sighed. There was always a ritual summoning of some demon to take care of the... Sorry. All right, Roxanne sighed. There was always a ritual summoning of some demon to take care of the resurrection. She glanced over the books crammed 2 stacks deep into the spiderweb-covered shelves that stretched all the way to the ceiling. A librarian was rumored to live in the library and care for the books, but Roxanne had camped out in one room of hundreds within the enchanted archive hidden deep in the mystical woods and had seen no such librarian yet. If she had to read... Technology is fun. She had to read through all of the books herself to find the right spell to summon a demon. She might just join her friends in the afterlife. She had tried using the power of love, but no matter how many times she knelt over Mix Hyde's rotting body, she could not bring herself to cry. Sewing the bodies into the trunk of a tree would be tireless work and required the assistance of a witch. None of the witches who lived in the town overappreciated Roxanne's lust for blood. The missing bodies were too often attributed to witches' work, which led to their burning, which led to the unfortunate waste of a good body to charred ash. Roxanne licked the last bit of blood from the heart in her hands and tossed it into the corner where she kept remains. It would have to be the drop of blood thing. Roxanne leaned over the table where she'd been whiling away waiting for the new moon. She touched dried blood at the tip of the blade that had killed Hyde. She glanced at Medusa's severed stone head, her snakes frozen in their final act of hunger. These were the personal items she would need to soil with some human's blood. Soft piano cooed from the ever-present background noise. Roxanne didn't want to wait any longer. She'd already spent 2 lonely weeks in this dreadful place, the room in which her friends had died. For some stupid reason, it was the only place she could perform a drop of blood resurrection. Who made these rules? Probably the books could tell her if she cared to look. The new moon was still 1 week away. She understood little about what monsters were made of, but she knew this. The first hour of a new moon and a drop of blood from a human would rescue monsters from their deaths. I hope you both appreciate me when you're alive again, Roxanne said. I hope there's no more goddamned complaining when I request a fancy dinner every once in a while. She shivered to recall the types of women Mix Hyde preferred. The grungier and more easily forgotten, the better. And forget Medusa, she preferred men. You're both going to owe me big. The journey into Lumberton was a long trek through underground tunnels broken open with tree roots and flooded with dirty water. Mosquitoes buzzed around Roxanne but did not bite. They knew better than to feed on a fellow bloodsucker. Still, she waved her hands in front of her face to disperse their buzzing cloud. She hated the sight of little black dots in her vision. She emerged from the tunnel near the river that snaked to the town center. She'd memorized the path to the tavern by now. She was bored with it, bored with the whole enterprise of staying in one place. The town witches were furious about her extended stay. Roxanne passed one of their charred bodies and waved, then caught herself. You're too lonely, she muttered under her breath. Despite the recent uptick in town murders, the foolish townsfolk had not eschewed the tavern or slowed their inebriation. They were bored, and hell forbid they give up booze in favor of safety. Roxanne felt a vague kinship with their frowning faces as she swept into the place. She was bored too. She waited at the bar, side-eyeing patrons as she performed at humanity. A woman with silky curls bounced from table to table. Roxanne bit her lip. The barmaid wore her corset laced so tight that Roxanne understood her to be a connoisseur of pain. She flirted with abandon. She would make a pretty victim, but Roxanne was saving her for a special occasion, a last town hurrah. 2 skinny professor types shared a meal by an open window. The stout giant of a man enjoyed a mug of ale that was as large as his engorged liver must be. There were no other women in the tavern. What can I get you? The barman asked. Is your wife here by chance? Roxanne said. The barman scowled. Don't have a wife. Sister? Mother? Daughter? What are you getting at? The man asked. Don't have none of those either. Roxanne sighed, scanned the room, and made up her mind. I'll take your darkest beer. The barman placed a ladylike pint glass in front of her. She slid him 2 coins and took her seat across from the stout man. She did not intend to walk the dirty tunnels again until she could do so with her friends, and the giant man looked like he ate enough meat to satisfy Roxanne's thirst for iron. Mind if I join you? There's nowhere else to sit, she soothed. That's where I'm going to go.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. So this is not out yet. You are querying. Yay. Good luck to you. We wish you all the best.
Yeah.
Read the rest and tell us what else you have going on. What's going on in the world of Bonnie, in the writing world of Bonnie?
Yeah, so I've just had, a good amount of short stories out this year and a couple of novelettes, and so that's been nice. Since I was working on novels for so long, I wasn't writing as many shorts. And then this year I've kind of gotten back on the short train, so enjoying that.
You posted some links in the comments in the chat box to some of your recent stories if they're available online. I know everyone would love to read a lot more.
Yeah, I'll post a link to my website.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And again, fabulous costume. You look amazing.
Thanks. I do it every year.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Okay, so I need another human sacrifice. I'm gonna go with Natania. You are next on my little Zoom window here.
Oh dear, I did see Julie raise her hand. I'm just saying.
That's really funny. Yes, I did.
I have a limited window as the boss. Limited window. I did not see Julie's hand.
That's fine. I don't mind going either.
Okay. Julie can be the next victim.
Cool. So I thought I would actually read a little bit out of Queen of None, which is my book coming out from Vernacular in December 1st. So some book twins here, which is exciting. There's a scene that happens in a graveyard, so I figured that was kind of a good place to go. And I will try to, the short background of this that you need to know is that the main character is named Anna. She's the historical sister of Arthur, actually existed as early as the 12th century. Unfortunately, over time, she kind of disappeared from medieval manuscripts in favor of her more saucy sisters. But I wanted to recreate her story. I learned about her when I was in undergrad, and I always wanted to kind of create what could have happened if we actually remembered her. So she's fated to be forgotten as part of her prophecy, but this takes place after she is married off to Lancelot, who's a little different than the Lancelot you know, and she needs to collect some bones. So she's actually in the graveyard collecting bones for a spell that she wants to put together. And this is right after their marriage just kind of, it was never great to begin with, but it deteriorates even further, and they are in this scene. So anyway, I will begin. Annette was buried among the rabble of the castle, far below my ancestors in a crypt. I had the plaque commissioned for herself and knew the precise location, which was a blessing. Many servants got neither plaque nor a discernible resting place, but she served a greater purpose than she or I ever expected, and I believe she deserved greater than a pauper's barrow, at least until now. The common crypt was below ground and required passage through 3 gates. I had been down in the daylight, but never in the dark. Thankfully, there were torches which could be lighted by passing over the constant flame at the head of the crypt. Judging by the pale wicks, they were unused. I was not sure if it was because the servants and maids at the castle were too busy to visit, or if they simply did not know how to honor their dead. Either way, the passage reeked. Though most of the foot soldiers were buried in the north where they had fallen, a few lingered, and some died later. I pulled my hood over my face a little more and continued to descend into the dark, one step at a time, shivering. What did I expect? Ghasts? Phantoms? Certainly more than this. Once the smell dissipated as I progressed past the main antechamber, it was dry and warm. Though my torchlight illuminated an intriguing collection of bones and bodies, there was nothing remarkable other than the fact that this was, and had always been, a crypt. A dry, well-swept crypt. My fear gone, I went to the corner where I knew Annette's remains had been placed. There was little left, but sinew clung to the bones, and I shuddered as my fingers grazed the uneven surface. The book indicated that I need only a few bones and not an entire skeleton, so I took some finger bones along with a long, elegant femur and a shoulder blade. They fit comfortably in the bag. I was just leaving the cemetery when I heard a voice beckon me. It's late for a walk. God's lance, you scared me out of my skin. He was carrying a single white orchid from the garden, and he was shivering, having much underestimated the chill. I hadn't noticed how cold it was, but I also dressed accordingly. He looked as out of place in the climate as the flower. I'm sorry, I began. I looked at the orchid, then at him again. He was here for Blanchefleur. Of course he was. Good, pure, brilliant Lancelot, far more pious than I, and always striving to atone for sins he had no control over. Lance, it's cold, I said, pulling my satchel to the side and under my cloak. He would likely think I was on a similar errand, visiting the child's little unmarked grave. He mistook my hesitation for emotion, and though it was hard to see in the dim light, I could swear there were tears in his eyes. I speak to her sometimes, when I feel I can speak to no other. I know it is nonsense, but she is still a part of us, he said. I heard the weariness in his voice, the sound of a man's soul being wrung out by the careless hands of the gods. I nodded, looking demure. I had no escort. I have asked Elaine if I can see Galahad for 1 month in the summer. Arthur has given me permission. He cleared his throat. The silence was telling. Permission. He's given me permission to see Galahad in the summer. It would be good to see Benwick again. You can come if you'd like, you know. You'd be welcome there, and the climate might suit you, warm as it is. Poor Lance. I have never known who to blame for his suffering. Perhaps he was destined to suffer far before I ever encountered him, before our time in the orchid garden when I came to know him. I'm always quick to blame myself. I could not pretend to love him, nor could I accept that he loved me. Did he love Arthur as the king loved him? Perhaps. Did he love others? Yes. But even in those days, before the great rift that came between he and Arthur, Lance seemed to me a man desperate for love, but either unwilling or unable to accept the pain of it. Love broke his soul, I think. Of course, I was none to speak. I knew I ruined Bedivere's affections for me long ago. And in the dark nights, when I could not find sleep, I envisioned the life Bedivere and I could have had, free from politics and turmoil and loyalty, a world without Arthur, a world without Merlin. Worse even, when the dream died in a flurry of bitter memories, I thought perhaps someday I could find happiness with Lance, that I could bring him to fullness. Lance, I'm beyond traveling. I'm not as strong as I was. Anna. I sighed. He was being difficult and I was freezing. Can this wait? You always delay the inevitable, he said, kicking at the pebbled ground with his boot. You escape me when I try to comfort you. Our child, our children, we should share in the suffering together. I cannot live in that darkness forever, Lance. Elaine will give him a good life. You deserve a good life. I deserve only what I can take, I said.
That's wonderful, beautiful. Thank you very much. Can you tell us more about this book? When is it coming out?
So that is December 1st coming out. It's available for pre-order. I can put the links in there as well. And
you've got some great reviews to talk about as well, I believe.
I do, yeah. It's been a really wild review season. So Publishers Weekly and Kirkus actually liked it, which was pretty wild. And Booklist this week came through and really enjoyed it too. So I've got some good blurbs coming along, including one from Paul Jessup and a couple of other people. And Paul's got a pretty lengthy review coming out for it as well. So I'm pretty thrilled.
We're thrilled.
Yeah.
And I'm so thrilled. I think we should give away an early copy of that. What do
you?
Ooh,
I think that's a great idea.
I have a number in my hands below the screen. First person to type it in wins. My fans have not seen it yet. We're still looking. We're still looking. Nope. There you go, Melissa. Number 7.
Woo-hoo.
So we'll need your address. Just let us know your current address, because I'm sure that we have it actually, come to think of it. But you know, we'll send you a copy of Queen of None. Congratulations.
And I can send a book plate. I'm trying to get some so that I can send to people, since I can't sign anything because the world's on fire. But
yeah.
You know,
the world is on. Yeah.
I would love that. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Beautiful book.
And I have some other books too. I've just revamped my website and stuff, which has been fun. But I'll put the link in there too. So
wonderful. So I believe our next reader, I believe, is going to be Julie Day, and after that, I think Jason Harris has been technologically raising his hand. I noticed, and I've been very slow to notice that. So we'll do.
Jason
Julie.
Can go first if you guys want. I don't.
No, you should definitely go first, Julie.
Okay.
Because I'm the boss.
Because you are definitely the boss. You are controlling all muted mics.
Yeah.
And you made me make hot chocolate. So I'm actually going to do what everyone else was too smart to do, but I figured you guys are a good audience to see if I can get away with actually reading an excerpt from my story in The Way of the Laser, because it's a complicated one to do as a reading. And I want to, so you are my guinea pigs. We'll see what I can do. And if it fails, I know you'll be a understanding audience. But I really wanted to try it because it's interesting to me to see if I can pull it off. Okay, so it's a story called Speculative Execution, which was in Vernacular's first book. And 2 things you need to know. One is that it flips between a command line interface scenes and then point of view scenes. And the second thing you need to know is the point of view scenes include 2 voices within one head. So we're going to see how this goes. Speculative execution, command line interface, Falstaff node, local session initiated, serial connection established, consciousness 1. Please, that's not my name. Consciousness 1. God, is it supposed to hurt? JNet. Felix, branch prediction now 59%. Consciousness 1. Ah, you're just hoping this path will actually trigger. Consciousness 1. My body must still be attached. Giant. Quiet. Scene break. Cities and streets, and most especially homes, tend to transform once the shadows arrive. It was in the darkness that the city's night market came to life. Financial considerations juxtaposed alongside encryption-decryption keys and ciphertexts. On a good night, Sonia could sell 10 units or more, enough to keep her and Dacian in limglass, reasonable food, and their own private DMZ. But Studart Park, the night market's location these past 3 months, was over 1 kilometer to the west. Beyond the greening park, the trees spread like spokes, directing the spillover of sand travelers, glass sellers, and augmented servicers. All those people who made their money on the edges, buying and selling wares that had some element of wrong, or shameful, or foolhardy. God, the verbal back and forth was so much fun, almost like before. Stop thinking. Scene break. Command line. Falstaff node. Local session. Consciousness 1. I remember that scream, the chill, the thick acidic coating at the back of my throat. Was it in the attic, or did I never leave the street? I have a body, you know. Giant. Uncontrolled thought. Push it back down. Giant. Felix. Push it down now. Consciousness 1. No. Consciousness 1. Sonia, not an it.
Did you like that?
Scene break. Tonight, the darkness overflowed. It roiled with misshapen packets of data. Sonia's feet sounded overly loud on the street's cobbles. The night is my time, Sonia. You're not the only one who feels that way. Sonia took one quick step and then another. Definitely my time. Somehow, the comment sounded like so many pretty lies meant to soothe Sonia's way through the city. The darkness, when less desperate souls were abed, locked behind deadbolts and one-time pad bitstream. And a one-time pad bitstream was Sonia's natural domain. Sonia the Night King, the Night Queen, Sonia the Knave. Didn't mean anything about her life was safe. It was just after midnight. Sonia stood in the heart of the Abfall district, where many of the streets were so narrow a grown person had to walk sideways to make their way between the buildings. Thankfully, tonight's goal, home, work, friendship, thank God, resided on a street a flash or two more respectable. The garret on Falstaff Street looked out on a retrofitted trolley line and actual storefronts selling actual goods. I don't know how I'm doing for time, actually.
Doing fine. I'll let you know at the 1 minute warning.
Okay.
Please keep going. Everyone wants to hear more.
Okay, it's working. Scene break, command line, Falstaff node, local session, Giant, that's better. Giant, consideration equals date range from 2035 to 2041. Giant, optimal equals experience with immunity-aware programming. Consciousness 1. Sonia. Abort, damn it. Abort. Giant. No. Male voice. It's not over, Sonia. Consciousness 1. Sonia. Dacian, we have a backout plan? Male voice. Of course we do. Giant bullshit. Branch prediction, now 63%. Scene break. There is nothing as uncomfortable as feeling physically alone. Sonia kept her head up, hands at her sides, loose and ready, instead of jammed inside her coat pockets, listening, boots against cobblestones, a splash of water displaced, a cough, not hers, but nearby. So full of doom and gloom. Since when did that help anything, love? If she'd been asked to draw a map of the human condition as it related to the twisting streets of Dreisch, the street Sonia currently traversed would be the space between the safety of hope, otherwise known as the night market, and the comfort of dreams, that attic space on Falstaff Street that Sonia called home. Sonia had reached the intersection of Falstaff Street and Rue Augusta, just half a block, 5 flights of stairs, and 1 locked door before she reached her destination. Low-quality limb glass shops crowded both sides of the streets. And Lisa's glass garden, the Spirit Mother, and more practically, the Sabata Death Detective Bureau. Sonia knew that trying to buy the why of anything was the provenance of fools. Why was nothing but a quantum state of overlapping perspectives and supposed truths. Not that such basic common sense mattered. The world contained a surfeit of fools. Hence the success of death detectives. True enough. To Sonia's mind, even the most crudely manufactured Tin Man was a far more useful tool. Automatons. We done? I'll finish the sentence. Automatons could carry anything, including glassed backup plans. Not that anyone asked for her opinion. I always listen. Dacian, never mind. It's fine. And I'll stop there.
Thank you very much. I wish we had more time to keep going. You really do have a fantastic reading voice. It's wonderful to hear.
Oh, thank you. I wasn't sure if I could do 3 different things at once, but make it coherent, but hopefully it worked. Thank you.
I'm amazed at how well that transferred to audio. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you guys, because I haven't really thought about doing it, like submitting it to anything for audio, because I didn't think it was manageable, but I thought it would be fun to try.
You could read it. It would be great. But
so it's actually, can I tell you that it's inspired me, because what I did was when I had to go back to this, so I'm glad I did the dumb thing and actually look at it again. So I have a lot of the world building, but I didn't keep track of all the more programming elements of it. And so today I've been pulling all of that out of the story and laying it out so I understand that piece of it, because I just kind of like brain dumped in January and forgot. So that I can actually go back into the world and do other things, because I think it's ripe for that. So this event actually has inspired me to return there and actually make it ready for future use.
Well,
so thank you.
Definitely send us that to us when you do it.
Yeah.
Okay, I will.
Please, yes.
Just throwing that out there. So can you tell us any more about your work? A link to your website?
Sure. My website's stillwingingit.com. I've had a few short stories out this year, including the one in Way of the Laser. I also had, I was editor-in-chief of the Weird Dream Society that came out this year, which was a charity anthology that I put together with a group of others to raise money for races down on the border. And a number of people here were involved in that project, so thank you all for that. And it's actually done pretty well, but it's been really nice because it also allowed us to play around with what weird fiction really means, which I have kind of a broad view of, and I wanted to play with that. And then my novella from last year that came out with Aqueduct, The Rampant, was a Lambda finalist this year, so that was kind of fun and unexpected. But in general, I have to go with COVID threw me a loop, and so to be able to come back and finally just this week really, and come back to the writing world and be interacting with writers again and feel ready to look at work as work rather than as something with kind of a clear enough brain to really focus. That's I'm really thrilled that that's happening, because it's been a really rough 6 months or so. So that's my story. But yeah.
Again, thank you very much, Julie. Okay,
Thank
so
you.
next we're going to go with Jason. Let me find you on the list. You've been so patient. Thank you very much, Jason. Wonderful seeing you.
Hi, good to see you as well. Good meeting everybody here. I may have rushed out soon. There's some baby stuff I gotta help out with shortly, so but it'll be okay. It'll be okay. All right. So this is from the book you guys are publishing.
A lot of us know each other. A lot of us don't. So introduce yourself pretty quickly.
Oh, sure, yeah. So you guys are publishing a novella, Master of Rods and Strings, later in 2021, I think around July. I'm very happy to have this come out. Been working on it some years, and it's basically the story of the young puppeteer Elias, who first is fascinated by becoming a master of puppetry, but then he discovers there's something known as occult puppetry, and he feels the need to have a lot of vengeance against those who have wronged him, and so he sort of moves in that direction. Ambition does its terrible consequences. That's the gist. So this is just the beginning here. I'll read that. All right. I will not deny that I have always been fascinated with puppets. Perhaps because I was born on a farm in Saint-Simeon, a forgotten town west of Valence in southern France, named after the patron saint of puppets. Despite the frequent puppet shows, many families consider themselves extraordinarily lucky if a child were accepted into the Lycée Avancé de Marionnette to study such puppetry. Not all were enthusiastic. Neither my father, Patrick Clermont, nor my mother, Anne Below, ever bought me a puppet. I sulked over this injustice. At the age of 4, I could only watch my sister Sonia play with Angelique, a fairy marionette with long red hair that her Uncle Pavon had bought her. Occasionally, when she noticed me moping, Sonia would let me pull at the strings. Although I could get Angelique to do a flopping walk, I never could make her glide flowingly as my sister did. Sonia's twirling flourishes of thumbs and rippling fingers gave Angelique life. Such talent, such grace! Uncle Pavon rubbed his thumbs together as he watched Angelique slide amid potted plants in the garden and float up to the doll's house to join Sonia. She played at the strings like a harp by whose invisible sounds Angelique moved with angelic affinity, almost hovering at times, as if her delicate azure wings could truly fly. Uncle Pavon's own prowess at puppetry was marvelous. Some whispered he could literally bring puppets to life. He took a dedicated interest in Sonia's future. That is why I have so few memories of her. She left for the advanced arts of puppetry. I was left alone. I longed to play with Sonia as we had on brighter days of jumping on piles of autumn leaves or racing through fields with the spring winds, chasing harvest mice and swallow-tailed butterflies between stalks of shuddering wheat and corn. When I brooded miserably and stroked Sebastian, our silky-furred black cat, who had also been the playmate of Sonia, I decided that if I too showed myself adept at puppets like my sister, then I'd be reunited with her. Despite father's refusal to buy me a marionette, though I bawled for one during walks down cobblestone streets in the marketplace of Saint-Simeon, Uncle Pavon, who was half Italian, brought back from a summer trip to Italy one of its most famous puppets, Giandua. Uncle Pavon's passion for puppetry extended to his purse strings. He spent much wealth to sponsor children to master the art of rods and strings. As Uncle made Giandua bend and hop about with herky-jerk motion, I laughed. My father scowled, but then accompanied Giandua's antics with violin. Once I began dancing, father smiled. Look, Elias loves to dance with music, he told mother, who smiled thinly back at him. But it was not the music that made me laugh, jump, and frolic. It was the puppet. This new marionette looked sharp in his black coat with red fringes, and the Ferrari family, most famous of Italian puppeteer dynasties, had added dark blue trim to the red and black tricorn hat that sat upon the puppet's frowning and sour face. That red button-eyed grimace made the mannequin look like he must be about to speak. Speak he did, though only in my dreams, since Uncle took Giandua away with him. I can show you how to really play the violin. The diminutive Giandua mouthed at me. In a dream upon a beach of black sand beneath red lights that spiraled away into an indigo sky. Play we did. Together we sawed and wailed across a stage where insect-headed people chirped and countless puppets hummed and sang. Before sleep, I imagined the nightly concerts. I'd stare at my bedroom wall, which would shiver with grainy phantasmagoria. 2 years later, when my father, stooped of back and calloused of chin, proposed to teach me the violin in waking life, he was astonished to find my uncanny facility with the bow. Yanjua plays even better than you, Papa. He shows me how at night. Father gently adjusted my right arm. Ah, but he does not hold the bow properly. It's as though the boy feels the strings right up his bones, into his ribs and heart, Father told Mother, who didn't look over while sewing up a ripped cravat for one of her few clients. She pressed her thin lips together. Let the boy be what he is, no more, no less. So you said about his sister. Father's smile collapsed into drooping marionette lines. Mother looked out the window at the corn and wheat bending beneath the setting sun. We had not seen Sonia in 6 months. My father explained that this was no mystery, but the result of her prodigy. Since Uncle Bavon had remarked her facility with puppets 4 years ago, and as a star pupil of Rod and String, she worked tirelessly at puppetry. She was free from the daily struggle between dirt and shoot, thread and seam. I listened to Sebastian's purrs for some inkling of when his mistress would return, but he at least seemed content to wait. The first snow would be coming, and my heart beat in a frenzy of disappointment, as I feared that my sister would not join me in building a snowman. She did not come home for either Christmas or Easter. With coward's eyes, my parents evaded my questions, putting me off month by month. No gifts could replace what they'd stolen. In May, the flower petals blew. Alone I chased after them. Only breezes caressed me. Meanwhile, Father, who practiced more than ever, baggy eyes redder from sleepless nights, attempted to make a musical genius of me, but he observed with disappointment and pique that I preferred make-believe with invisible puppets rather than work with the violin. Sure of foot, I liked jigging about to the music rather than performing it, and when I played the violin, I pretended Gyanjua and his grand puppet audience delighted to watch me. Walking home from school through St. Simeon's narrow streets, I'd gaze with longing at grinning and pouting faces that looked out from puppet shops. Once a month, the Carnival de Marionnettes played in town, and I stared enraptured at those puppets. I also shadowed local daily street shows. One of the street puppeteers, named Eve, was amused by my devotion. He gave me a memorable lesson there among the dark blur of gray cobblestones.
I just want to pause and 1 minute warning. So if you want to stop and wrap up and tell people a little more about your work.
Oh, it's literally just a paragraph and 2 sentences. The life of puppets, he said, untwisting the strings of his marionette menagerie, is the dance of the fingers. Puppeteers of old, they say, would connect wires from their veins, feeding lifeblood to puppets to entice the spirits of the earth to enter them. Today we do this with strings. You move like so, and he moves. A thing is dead until it moves. You bring it life. Eve twitched his knuckles, the horse marionette rose and clopped across the road. After a half hour of imitating Eve, I began to get the trick of it. So again, it's the story of Elias becoming more and more obsessed with the occult side of things once he learns his sister is largely lost to him, and becomes more and more obsessed with the power of this other art and taking vengeance.
That sounds wonderful, and it's coming out in July from us.
Yes, for you guys. Yeah.
Would you like to add anything else about this fabulous thing?
Oh, just again, happy to be part of the group here, and I don't want to give any spoilers, so I hope you guys everybody will read it eventually.
Do you have anything else out? Do you have anything else coming this year? Anything else going on?
Yeah, there's a story coming out, I think, next month. It's called Lilith Doesn't Like Happy Endings. Maybe I can send you guys a link to that. I think it's
post a link to it. If you have a website or anything to post a link to in the chat.
My website is jasonmarkharris.com. I can just
put it in the chat. So I'm going to select our next victim, who also has a really creepy background, because I think we were all really creeped out by that background, by the way.
Well, that was you guys. I think it was Eric who found it, so I'm really happy about that.
So the next background that I see on my view screen is a Miss AC Wise. I believe that we should do a creepy background doubleheader. That's what I think is best. So if you would like to do some reading, I would love to hear what's going on. What's going on with Allison, with AC Wise.
All right, I'm going to actually read from my story from EVIL in Technicolor, which is called 1,000 Faces -1. And hopefully not everybody has read it already, so it won't be too repetitive for you guys.
Well, this was, I think, Arlie Sorg at Lightspeed, the reviewer at Lightspeed Magazine, who loved the collection. I believe this was his favorite story. So
Excellent. So here we go. 1,000 Faces -1. Donovan dreams of a man without a face. Or rather, the man has a face, but Donovan can't see it. It's hidden under a black hood, like a criminal in an old movie might wear as he's about to hang. The man doesn't do anything other than stand in the corner, but somehow that simple act induces a sense of dread. The man has a message, or there's something important Donovan has forgotten. The man has come to take away something Donovan loves. Donovan wishes the man would get it over with, but he only stands there, breathing, and the cloth over his mouth goes in and out, in and out. He shouldn't be thinking about Paris. He promised himself he wouldn't. But how can he avoid it when Notre Dame is burning? The footage is horrifying, the towers going up in flame and the skeletal remains of the building afterwards. He watches the videos over and over, unable to stop, and he thinks about Henry. It's been over 2 years since he stood atop the cathedral, gazing out at the city spread below. Bright sunlight stretched shadows across the courtyard, flattening the people they belonged to into dots. Then Henry had put a hand on the small of Donovan's back, whispering in his ear, and warmth had spread like fire across Donovan's skin. Their chance meeting had been prearranged, but that didn't lessen the thrill. Donovan felt like a spy, slipping into a role Henry had designed for him, pretending to be someone else and leaving his own failure of a life behind. In the instant before turning to see Henry for the first time, he'd been swept by the vertiginous feeling of doing something incredibly dangerous, and yet being incredibly safe at the same time. When we meet, I want you to pretend we're strangers. Henry had sent the message while Donovan waited at the airport, brand new passport clutched in his hand. He'd never flown internationally before, couldn't afford it. But Henry had paid for everything, flying Donovan, a complete stranger, 7.5 hours across the ocean to meet him at the top of Notre Dame. "We are strangers," Donovan had texted back, tacking on a smiley face. He stopped just short of using the eggplant emoji, even though they both knew they were meeting up explicitly for sex. It felt too forward, like a cartoon vegetable implied an intimacy he hadn't earned yet. "That's not what I mean. Pretend you're not you. Pretend to be somebody else." In that moment, Donovan had almost gotten cold feet and backed out. Henry had picked his dating profile out of hundreds and contacted him, but now he wanted him to be someone else. And who could blame him? Donovan was barely able to afford his shitty one-room apartment, working shifts at 2 different restaurants and ready to give up on ever having a music career. He was a loser. Whereas Henry seemed too good to be true. Older, smart, funny, a foodie, a world traveler. And he had the kind of money required to fly a stranger to a whole other continent based solely on a handful of messages exchanged through a dating app. Donovan had put his nerves aside. What did he have to lose, really? And when would he ever get an opportunity like that again? So he'd flown to Paris, gone to the top of Notre Dame as instructed, and nervously waited. Then Henry's hand rested on his back, and his lips brushed Donovan's ear. Donovan's mind had gone completely blank. Henry could have whispered anything, a comment about the view, a request, or a demand to fuck him. All Donovan registered was a dizzy sensation of lust, as though he was falling from the top of the cathedral. Donovan wishes he could remember Henry's words. He would have something to hold on to now. As it is, he doesn't even have pictures. Henry had made him promise not to take any, and Donovan had obeyed, like he'd obeyed all of Henry's other rules, except one. He spent a week in Paris, pretending to be someone else, ordering what Henry told him to order, visiting the places Henry wanted to visit. Donovan let himself become someone for whom it was perfectly natural to dine in fine restaurants and drink expensive champagne, ride to the top of the Eiffel Tower, watch the city dissolve in a smear of light below, visit the catacombs under the city, walk through the galleries of the Louvre, find a quiet, shadowed corner along the banks of the Seine, and go down on his knees to take Henry's cock in his mouth while tourists sailed by, oblivious to their presence. When he'd come home, he had been someone different. Within a week, his life had transformed. He'd gotten an offer from a producer based on the demo recording he'd made, just when he'd been ready to give up. Like Henry choosing him out of all the profiles on the dating app, it was another impossibility. The offer he'd always dreamed of. And he'd almost been too heartbroken to take it until his best friend Mel had all but slapped him upside the head and forced him to accept. Now, if he wanted to, Donovan could afford to fly to Paris on his own, stay in the same hotel he stayed in with Henry, eat at all the same restaurants. Only Notre Dame is gone, and it wouldn't be the same. It will never be his Notre Dame again, the exact place where he stood with Henry's hand on his back, telling himself over and over and over again it would just be another hookup, telling himself over and over not to fall in love. And that's probably a good place to stop.
It is wonderful. Thank you very much. So that's from EVIL in Technicolor, obviously, which came out on October 1st, that everyone so well. And it's a beautiful story. I hope everyone has read it. What else can you tell us about your work? Do you have a website? Do you have any recent publications? What's going on in the world of ACYs?
Sure. First of all, I'd like to point out my background is actually the Paris catacombs, so very appropriate. I have a story coming out tomorrow at Pseudopod called Teeth Long and Sharp as Blades. So that should be up at some point tomorrow. And Karen edited it, so thank you, Karen. And I have a story, I'm actually not sure whether it's coming out this year or not, but upcoming at Clark's World as well. And I will drop a link to my website in the chat.
Thank you very much. So we are entering the long dark night of the soul, and so I think we should continue with ghost stories. I see that AM Muffaz is here. We're very excited to see you. I'm going to ask you to unmute. Welcome, welcome. It's nice to meet you virtually. I have been reading your work and editing your work, and here you are. So you have a book coming out in October from us. And I would love for you if you could tell people a little bit about it and say hello to everyone.
Oh, sorry, I've been mostly quiet. I figured everyone here knows everybody, so I was like,
Not necessarily true.
Sorry?
Not true, actually, but please go ahead.
Well, I've been writing on and off for the past 20 years or so. Unfortunately, this means that my website is hopelessly out of date. And, I mostly write horror from the perspective of, I guess, a stranger in another land. And that is indeed what I am here. I'm from Malaysia. And the book that's coming out in October 2021, it's called Finches, after Darwin's Finches. It's about a man who comes to realize that his garden and the world around it is changing faster than he can grasp. And he sees it through the eyes of a religious Muslim man, but also as someone who cannot deny the sorry, I'm screwing this up. Inevitability of evolution. So, in short, it's a story about a guy who is haunted by evolution. Oh, thank you. I just saw the chat. So, I honestly wasn't expecting to read tonight. I'd heard everyone else and I was like, well, this is wonderful. But again, I thought, well, I'm the stranger in the room, so that's what it is. Thank you. That's fair enough.
Read something from what you have coming out. We'd love to hear it. It's coming out in October next year. You get such an early look.
Yeah. So this is part of what I've sent in my edits to Joe. So he may or may not have seen it yet. He may or may not feel inclined to correct me on things.
Paul sent it very long book, so I'm still editing that one. Please go ahead.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
All right. So this is a snippet from the point of view of one of the older characters in the book, Grandmother Ja. And it's her first night back in the house of her late husband after his death. They were estranged and she claimed back the house. So I'll begin. The mattress was a thick slab of foam that Rahim, in his enthusiasm, declared the best support for her aging back. It smelled of rubber, even though the sheets she brought from her daughter's house. Even through the sheets she brought from her daughter's house. Fatima had agreed with her brother and added that a bed in this style was less likely to attract bugs. More than that, she bought the matching orthopedic pillow, which for all its quilted padding was as much foam as Rahim's bed. Grandmother Ja rolled onto her back to better align her neck with the curve of the pillow. She tried sliding forward so that she was just at the edge, but still found the pillow was too high. The ceiling fan lumbered overhead, though she'd personally never heard of a fan falling out of its socket. It sounded as though the motor was straining against the ceiling, and the fan blades whipped like a top on the verge of collapse. Their small breezes lapped at her cheeks and tossed fine hairs over her forehead, which she wiped aside. She closed her eyes. There were no roads nor cicadas, and there was only the sound of the air whisking around the room. Their land was one of the oldest plots in the village. Sorry, got a bit of a thing here in terms of the Word document. There we go. Their land was one of the oldest plots in the village, and the farthest from anywhere else. It was too dry a season for frogs, and the grass around the place too freshly cleared for crickets. Bringing her hand to her side, she curled her fingers against the sheets. Her hand brushed a draft, cold, and in spite of itself, material. She bolted upright, pulling away the blanket from her legs. Instinctively, she kicked out at the space beside her. Her leg hit the same concentration of draft and cold her hand had met, registering it as a bulk that rolled away upon contact with her foot. "Filthy old man," she shouted, "shameless!" Staring firmly into the darkness beside her bed, she lifted her hand and pointed. "How dare you come back here?" The darkness was as impenetrable as the view had been behind her closed eyelids. Knowing but not seeing what lay there added to her anger, and her anger added to her voice. "This is my house. This is my children's inheritance. This has nothing to do with you." The ceiling fan continued to spin overhead, though the air it stirred had grown damper, with a brackish, almost muddy aftertaste. A choking feeling began to rise in her throat, as though the air conspired to thicken there. "Go back to your whore," she rasped, clutching the blanket to her chest. "Leave me alone." The rattle of the fan's motor began to slow. Grandmother Ja made an effort to breathe through her nose, which helped minimize the taste of soil, but brought her the full smell of dirt. Swinging her legs over the edge of the bed, she fished for the floor. The vinyl was cool to the touch, as if she'd plunged her feet into water. She hobbled to the window, the glass panes shut against the night, where the lack of moonlight seemed to make the room colder. She ran her finger along the edge of the panes, counting upwards to the fourth, and slid her finger left till she hit the lever that opened the window. As she moved to grab the lever, she felt the chill rise up against her ankles. 4 cold spots pressed into the left side of her foot, and 1 cold spot pressed into the right. A hand stroked her arm, from her shoulder to her inner elbow. Grandmother Ja screamed as she slapped the head of the old man she knew, but could not see, who was in the shadows. Come near me again, will you? Just try to come near me again. She knew he raised his arms to shield himself from her blows. It's not enough that you married that whore. Thud after thud, she rained on him. Your son loves another man, but he still has more dignity than you. She knew he could hear her shriek. If my descendants are never Malays, they would still have more dignity than you. Your daughter refuses to even come here. That's how ashamed she feels. His ears, his wrists, his neck. She knew what her hands hit when they reached out. You brought this on yourself.
This is so good.
That 1 minute warning.
She got a handle on his nose and pulled until he drew back. Your legacy is nothing. I'll see to it. I'll make it so. The hand on her foot let go. Grandmother Ja reached for the window's lever and pulled. The zest of wild weeds and night flowers overpowered the scent of earth. Overhead, the fan began to pick up speed. The geriatric motor went back to making its mournful noise, and Grandmother Ja slumped against the window frame, resting her elbows on the recess there. She was sure, even if she kept her window open every night from now on, there wouldn't be a robber stupid enough to come in.
Okay.
Her pillow would soon absorb the pungency of her sweat and
gotta
see the
pause.
smell of its factory.
I hate to
Sorry?
pause. It's time. It's time.
Okay,
Pause.
this is
Trying to pause.
basically the last
So
sentence,
good.
so yeah.
Everyone, like, they started off in the chat, then everyone just kind of stopped chatting. And that's when you really good.
I was reading screens, so I didn't
Yeah.
see it.
So, but no, it was fantastic. Thank you. And this is coming out in October. And I don't have cover art to show. I don't have that yet. All I have is this wonderful book that we're going to edit and present to the world in October. And we're very excited. And can you tell everybody else, if there's anything else you have going on this year or next year? We'd love to hear about it.
Unfortunately, no, there is one that might be coming up. I have a story that is reserved for volume 2 of an anthology, but unfortunately this is, again, it's been reserved and I don't really know if it's going to make the list. But other than that, no, I'm working on a novel about a Chinese space base in Mars. And it's more satire than it is, I would say, reality.
Okay. Well, that's exciting. I certainly look forward to seeing it. And, thank you so much. Could you post, I know your website's out of date, but I know everybody would love to see your website anyway. So if you could put that in the chat.
Sure, I can do that.
All right, so I need to find another victim here.
Before you do that, I think we should give away another book.
Oh, yes, we should.
We should give away one more book. And I think it should definitely be Marie's.
Actually, last time I forgot.
Galactic HELLCATS.
I have a number here. I have a number that I have. So the first person to guess my number between 1 and 10 is the winner. I got a number here. Julie, you win. The number is 5. So Julie, you have Way of the Laser. Do you have Evil in Technicolor?
I do not.
Well,
I don't have the print. I have the e-version only.
Well, we should definitely send you a print version of Evil in Technicolor. Do you have Queen of None?
No.
Which one would you prefer?
Oh my God, that's not fair.
Queen of None it is.
There's also door number 3. When I first said this, I said, hey, maybe we should give away Marie's new book. There's a couple of ARCs I have that.
Oh, that's a fantastic idea.
That's another option.
That's another option. You got to make a choice.
You guys,
the tough choice.
I'm gonna go with the last choice because I don't want to I can't choose.
You'll love it, I promise.
All right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay.
I'd love to.
And that's
Thank you guys.
Great way, I think, to choose our next victim. Marie, I think you can be our next victim.
Okay, I am going to read from Galactic HELLCATS, my new novel.
Eric, could you do me a favor? Could you actually post a link to the cover so that everyone can see the cover in the chat? I know people would love to see it, Eric.
I'm on it.
Hold on. I have it actually on my website right now. So
you made
one stone. Just go to my website and you will see the cover right on the homepage along with the pre-order link.
Hooray.
And it is a tale about an all-female motorcycle gang in outer space rescuing a gay prince. That's how I roll. And shall I start reading? Okay, chapter 1. Key gets her ride. A starscape turned before Key, breathtaking, banded with blue and green nebulae. She reached toward the velvet black, and the stars abruptly became a glistening slab of marbled meat. Key covered her face. She was starving, and the food ads on the projection wall were pure torture. Key crouched inside a dumpster frame, thighs aching, waiting for the trash bot to trundle by. It didn't smell great. The Mars tourism ad was her only distraction in the rotating video lineup. Few people were in the shopping center this late, scurrying on their way to someplace else under a fuzzy gray sky. A chubby girl pressed her thumb into a door plate and walked through a hologram, urging her to wave her hand at it to try different styles of pants. The hologram thought the departing store worker was interested in bright colors and shorter lengths, and spoke eagerly to her departing form like a horny hustler. Key made a mental note to tell Ethan about that. He'd think it was hilarious. Hey! Key froze, veins turning to ice. She couldn't afford another mark on her record. 2 strikes already as an adult. The third would send her to hard time. Running footsteps, pelting up behind her. Could she make a break for it? Her joints ached. She braced to jump. The figure ran past her, chasing after the chubby girl, who turned and waved in recognition. They linked arms and continued to the train stop. Relaxing without giving up her crouch hurt. Her foot slipped on something that felt like chicken skin. The display urged her to travel the galaxy at Cafe Andromeda. The trash bot wobbled around the corner at last, a barge with a flat face and 2 arms at one end, taking its own sweet time picking up the trash and inspecting it. It reached Key's dumpster, the one with a key-shaped hole in the bottom. That had taken 4 trips to cut. Key squeezed her arms tight to her sides and hoped the bin would lift clean around her. The bot did, lifted it, as it did all of them, and the back hole of the hole only brushed Key's hair. The bin would register entry, but the bot still shook it over its compactor on its butt. Perhaps it was programmed like that to look busier. While the bot shook the bin, Key jimmied the lock and climbed into the bot's center compartment. The greasy interior had the particular acrid stink of sour beer and fermented soda pop. The bot continued on its way with Key in its belly. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit to where she leaves the bot. A security bot whizzed overhead, having just scanned the space Key now occupied, right on time for its schedule. The little red dot on her screen, perfect. Now she was in the employees-only alleyway and had 2 minutes to get out of sight. Key peeled a sticker off the back of her hand. It was a conductive plastic circuit with sticky goo on one side, printed illegally at the local library after hours. It fit the lock perfectly and gave a soft click. She pushed the handle, however, another bolt caught. Oh, balls, did nobody trust their locks anymore? Key felt offended on the behalf of Meadco. She fished her longest pick between the door and frame, feeling for the offending bolt. A shadow fell over her. She froze and shrank against the wall, staring helplessly like a mouse caught in a trap. The shadow glided gracefully over the next building. It wasn't a cop or a drone, but a late shopper heading home in its gorgeous solo flyer. In the gorgeous solo flyer, a Shadow Cat 88. Key knew the shape as intimately as the interior of a 4-tumbler lock. The 88 was smooth as a river pebble, elegantly elongated around its driver with this delicate hint of vestigial fins, a curve cut on the underside. Key found herself staring at the patch of sky it had left, at the void where someone had gotten away from gravity. And now I'm going to skip ahead to introduce you to our second main character, Margot. So, chapter 2, Margot gets her ride. When General Quarters was called, Margot Santiago Nguyen didn't think anything of it. It was a drill. It had to be. They drilled so much. Margot ran to her post and processed orders. She brought 14 rounds of N24 to the third port gunner. She refilled the munitions to starboard. She didn't think about anything but making sure she got each order right and under the required time limit. She didn't wonder that she kept shipping ammunition out and it didn't come back. She didn't suspect anything was out of the ordinary until she was hurrying down the corridor behind a cart loaded with bombs and saw an officer looking scared. She brought another parcel of rounds to the forward gunner, and the woman pushed her away, leaning back from her harness, her eyes still reflective white from the targeting display. "It's over," she said. And that was when Margot knew for certain she'd been in a battle. She returned to the depot to take stock and report like they were taught. One of her fellow munitions crew, Cho, was sweating profusely and slapped her on the back and said, "You are stone cold, Nguyen." But I didn't know, she thought. Can I panic now? Her knees knocked. She held on to her station for support and gave Cho a tight smile. She'd often sat up at night, anxiously wondering how she would face real battle, if she would cry or freak out or visibly show her fear to the derision of her teammates. She hadn't. Despite herself, she'd done just fine and could do so again. She pushed herself back onto her feet. Being in battle was the scariest part of being in the Navy, and it was over. Fearing her own cowardice had been the worst part of the anticipation, and that was over too. At dinner, she let Cho tell the tale of her calm under pressure while the truth sat silent inside of her. Everyone else seemed to have a much more communal experience, and they finished each other's sentences and embroidered their stories of heroism that she hadn't seen. Nearly everyone else had narrowly missed a falling bulkhead or been rocked by an explosion with a live warhead in their hands.
So I hate to give you, there's that 1 minute warning there.
Okay.
So.
That's all right. I'm going to skip a little ahead. I don't know if I should skip ahead. Yeah. I'm going to skip ahead to the end. So she's, oh, maybe I won't read it. I don't know. I was going to tell the bit where she finally gets her ride.
They have to actually buy the book and read it. That's
Yeah.
how it works. It's an awesome book. People need to check it out and read it. They're gonna, as you can tell, it's awesome and people are gonna love it. So
yeah,
if you could.
There's 4 main characters. There's Ki, who you've met, and Margot, and Zuleika, who is the rich girl who has the vintage bike. And then you get to meet the handsome prince they rescue, Thane. Yeah, so it's coming out in March of next year, 2021. There's a pre-order link on my website. I also have a novella coming out in analog soon, The Unlikely Heroines of Io Station.
Yeah.
Can't wait for that to come out. I've got like 10 stories coming out soon at various times. I have a nonfiction article in this month's analog. And if you go to my website, you can click on stories. Anything that's free online has a link.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. That was fantastic. I think before it's almost 9:30, and I was so deficient in giving away a book. I've got a number between 1 and 10 under the desk, and I think we should give away another Galactic Hellcats. I hope that Eric's okay with that.
Of course. Yeah.
I got a number. I'm waiting on that number. 1 and 10. 1 and 10. Not there yet. Not up. Karen. The number was 1. The number was 1. So we got. Let's put down on the list, Eric. If you can get Karen another copy of Galactic Hellcats, I think that would be awesome. Congratulations, Karen. Okay, we are running out of victims, guys. We're getting close to the end, but I believe Wendy, has not gone yet, and I think that it's definitely time for Wendy. Let me unmute.
Awesome, thanks. At the last minute, I remembered, and this is kind of a dumb thing to remember, but I actually have a new horror novel coming out next summer. And I thought, well, even though I've never read anything from it before, I'm going to read something from it. So it's called The Deer Kings, and it's set in rural Oregon in 2 different timelines. One is 1989, one is 2018, and it starts out and it's about these kids who make an enemy of the local drug dealers, and they have to band together and do some supernatural stuff, which then has major repercussions for them as adults. So we're going to start with the first scene where you meet the main character, Gary, and it's 1989. On the groaning front porch of the big house, Gary knocked on the doorframe. Only the screen door was closed, the green paint flaking, the wood warped enough to leave a gap at the bottom corner. A smell floated out of the old house, a dank stink of stale beer, cigarette smoke, and something nasty that Gary couldn't quite place. A shadow shuffled toward him through the darkened living room. It might have been a man or a woman, old or young. Gary hadn't seen enough of the new neighbors to know who all lived inside the farmhouse. The shadow cursed softly, and Gary's skin prickled despite the heat. He had seen things in that house too many times not to be a little afraid today. A face appeared behind the screen. "You want something?" The voice was so rough it took him a second to recognize it as a woman's. Her face floated behind the screen door, the eyelids thick and pink where they weren't smeared with yesterday's mascara, her mouth swollen. She brought her cigarette to her lips and took a drag. "Yeah," she said, exhaling into his face. He held up the toolbox, his skinny wrist wobbling. "My dad will need this." The cigarette glowed between her fingertips, the tobacco hissing as she inhaled. That too puffy face made him want to step backward. Smoke rushed out into his face again. "So why didn't he bring it with him in the first place?" There was no way to explain this to a stranger. "He's got 2 toolboxes," he said. She unlatched the screen door. "Fine, whatever." He had to squeeze between her and the wall, his shoulder pushing into the spongy mass of her enormous breasts. He thought he heard her laugh. If she hadn't, he might have stopped and stared around himself, overwhelmed by the difference between the house today and the way it had been just a few months ago. His dad had been the Berman's caretaker for almost 2 years now, ever since Mr. Berman had open heart surgery and his doctors told him to start taking things easy. Dad liked being a help to the old man, and the rent break didn't hurt any. Working in the woods wasn't getting any more lucrative. When the last family had moved out of the big house, always capitalized in Gary's head, even when he just glanced across the winding driveway and expansive lawn that separated their own smaller cottage from the other house, Gary had helped his dad clean out the place. There was the usual haul of forgotten kids' stuff. Gary had discovered a battered red D&D manual he couldn't wait to read through this summer, and mismatched socks, but the Donderos had been fairly clean tenants, and overall the clean-out had been painless. Well, not painless, not for Gary, not when the big house filled itself with patches of shadows that moved when they shouldn't and whispered to itself in voices that oughtn't whisper. It had been a very long weekend for Gary, maybe the longest. The skin on his neck had prickled so much he thought it would run away. It prickled now as he made his way through the debris of empty beer cans and wads of what he was pretty sure were dirty diapers. Things crunched under his sneakers that he knew he didn't want to see. The toolbox banged against his leg with every slow step, the sharp corner threatening to jab right through his jeans. His mouth went dry as a small heap in the middle of the floor gave a wriggle and a twitch. "Watch out for the baby, moron," the woman snapped. She pushed by him and stooped over. Her thin nightgown suggested she hadn't bothered with underwear. He tried to look anywhere else. "You're a stinky little shit," she complained. She eyed Gary. "Any chance you change diapers?" "No," he said quickly. Gary?" His dad's voice cut him off. "That you, son? I need my metalworking toolbox. Can you go get it?" I got it, Gary shouted. The baby let out an angry squall. The woman glared at Gary. He's on the stairs, she growled, waving her hand toward the room's second doorway. Gary hurried away. The living room opened onto a narrow hallway, a staircase making up one wall. To the other side, the dark maw of a bathroom gave off the stink of old pee. The hall ended on the back door, but a mess of disassembled railing guaranteed he wasn't going any farther than the end of the stairs. His dad sat on the next to last stair, rubbing his bad knee. He jerked his chin at the mess on the floor. Had to take down the entire banister. Can you believe it? Ought to be rebuilt with all new wood, but Berman would never pay for that. Gary used his foot to clear a path forward and put the toolbox down at the end of the stairs. He shook out his wrists. So why do you need the metalworking tools? His dad pulled his readers down from the top of his head and studied Gary's face through the lenses. I'd say the real question was how you knew I needed that before I did. Gary shrugged. His dad sighed. It wasn't the first time he'd asked Gary something similar and got no real answer. Gotta cut some of the old nails, he explained. Don't want that little baby scratching herself when she starts going up and down those stairs, right? Right, Gary agreed. He opened the toolbox and took out the wire snippers. Think these'll do it? The back door groaned open, pieces of old wood clattering against it as the neighbor man strode in. Gary had never seen anyone look so much like a movie villain. The long blonde hair and battered jean vest belonged on a Hollywood mercenary or motorcycle gang member. The blue tattoos crawling out from under the dirty sleeves of his thermal shirt and up his neck looked actual creepy though. And he did ride a real Harley. The man shifted a toothpick into the corner of his mouth. Landlord finally sent someone to take a look at that railing, I see. Death trap, don't you think? Gary's dad stood up.
Wendy, 1 minute warning.
Oh, golly. John Sheldon, I'm just going to read down, skip down to the last thing where he says, I'm Vincent Werner, he announced. My old lady's around here somewhere. I call her Gwenny. Werner, huh? John smiled like the soda. Like the soda, Vincent laughed. Behind him, black shadows pooled and wriggled. Gary had to swallow twice before he could reply, Nice to meet you, sir. The shadows squidged off down the hall, but Gary could still feel the darkness squirming beneath Vincent Werner's boots.
Very nice. Thank you very much. So what can you tell us about what's going on? Obviously, you edit a little magazine.
Yeah, this never heard of magazine called Nightmare Magazine. My first issue of it, I'll be taking over as the editor-in-chief there. My first issue comes out in February. Before that, in January, we have an enormous special double issue for our 100th issue, which should be fantastic. And I will put my website up right now.
And can you tell us a bit about some of your other writings? Oath of
Oh,
Dog?
you know what? Next week, I have a truly horrible story going up at Pseudopod. I felt really good. It's called The Smell of Night in the Basement. And I felt good because they emailed me and they said, we like this piece a lot, but we think that the ending is too dark. Maybe you could rewrite it. And I thought, man, too dark for Pseudopod? That's a win. If you want something horrible about vampires, that'll be up next week, I think on Friday. So it should be something fun.
Yeah, that should be exciting. All right, so I think we're getting close to the end. I think we should do a giveaway so if we've got some people that have been listening very nicely. I want to make sure that you guys who are not our authors have an opportunity to win every single one of our books so far, all 3 of the books that we have available right now. And so I would like I'm gonna put my hands below the screen here, and I would love if you all can go into your chat windows and guess that number. Matt, you got it right. It's 3. 3 for all 3 of those books. And Tarver, you were just not fast enough. Matt beat you to it. Sorry, but there you go. So Matt, if you could get in touch with us and let us know where to send you those books, we will send you all 3. There you go.
I guess wrong on so many of the others, so it's nice to get them all.
There you go. You win all three, bud. Good job.
Thank you.
Fastest to the three. You were reading my mind. You thought 3 books. I'm going to guess 3. You were right. Hand on the buzzer. Good job. So we're getting close to the end here. I believe, has everyone but Stina gone? Is Stina all that's left of the wonderful readers today? I'm trying to keep track here, but I'm not doing a very good job of keeping track. I believe Stina is yes.
Yeah.
So Stina, if you could unmute, come on in. How are you?
Okay.
So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your work, and share with us perhaps cover art of something that you have for pre-order that looks amazing?
Sure. I'm Stina Leicht. I have a number of novels out. 2 with, actually 3 with Saga Press, and the latest one coming out in January is Persephone Station. Yay! It's a science fiction novel. It's a gender-flipped Magnificent 7 set in space with 6 women of color and 1 white woman who never speaks. That's the elevator pitch. But yeah, it's I'm really proud of it. But it comes out in January. That's that one.
So,
but I thought I was supposed to read from.
Yes, and you are, and I think it's great that you actually hold it. That's something we really should have been doing more of this night. We failed at. I know I have some.
I think it's so pretty. I really do. I love it.
Nice.
Yeah, it's badass. I love this book.
It's about a wonderful haunted house in Austin. I say wonderful haunted house intentionally. Can you tell us a little bit about your story?
Oh yes. Actually, it's originally started off as a totally different story that wasn't nearly as good. So I cannibalized the good parts. But it is my kind of my love letter to the haunting of Hill House, and also just bits of various things that I really, really enjoy in horror. Like, well, I've always had a thing for the Munsters and the Addams Family, and I love old creepy houses, and I was thrilled to death that Jo contacted me to be a part of this whole thing. So yeah, I was just thrilled to death because this is I really love Hammer horror movies. They're cheesy as all get out, and I just love the design and the aesthetic of them. So anyway, that's that. But yeah, I'm terrible at introductions.
Well, you're introduced, so let's get some.
Let me do this thing. Okay, here we go. It's called "Forgiveness is Warm, like a tear on the cheek." Secretive and brooding, Mulfray House squatted atop the hill like a toad within the live oak grove. At night, its windows flickered sickly yellow. Black wrought iron spikes topped the limestone walls ringing the property and its accompanying family cemetery plot. A 13-acre parcel of undeveloped land was an unusual feature in Austin, particularly given that it was 3 blocks east of South Congress Avenue. Like most urban areas, the surrounding neighborhood had seen more diverse, if difficult, times. Many of the original houses, once great Gilded Age ladies, had been condemned and replaced with cheap apartment buildings. The architectural survivors bore the scars of gentrification as ill-conceived renovations. Mulfray was the only exception. An imposing 3-story Victorian, it appeared to sneer down at its neighbors in semi-derelict defiance. The house's history was, for the most part, unclear, but in 1974, a mentally unstable man broke in and set fire to it, claiming someone inside had possessed him. No evidence of a resident was found. The unfortunate man was taken to Shoal Creek Mental Hospital for treatment. It wasn't the first time the house had weathered arson. When located, the absent owners declined to press charges. Soon, a swarm of contractors effected repairs. The house began to look whole again. 10 months later, a moving van slowly worked its way up the steep drive and disgorged furnishings. In a vacuum of information, the neighbors speculated for weeks about who would move in. More time passed. Then late one October evening, a long black vehicle eased to the iron gate. The next day, the car was still parked in the drive. Like dead men, its heavily tinted windows told no tales. Again, the neighborhood waited, curious. Still no one emerged to introduce themselves. The only evidence the building was occupied were specters of light in the windows and outside. Every evening at 7 o'clock, a blue bulb on the back porch snapped on. Sometimes distant music, a piano or a woman singing, haunted the breeze. With little ammunition for fresh rumors, the community went on about the business of living, working, and dying. Muffaz House became invisible in the way a discarded toy is unseen in an untidy child's bedroom. Thus, the house and its mysterious tenants were left to dream their dark dreams in peace. Okay, so next section. Screw you and your stupid band. Andy hurled a beer bottle across the DIY soundproof garage. Glass exploded against the wall, just missing Jason's new Gibson in its stand. I quit! Jason edged in front of the instrument case. In front of the instrument in case of a second barrage. He knew it was a mistake the instant he said, "You can't quit." Andy whirled, shoving an accusing finger in his face. "Who the hell are you to tell me what to do?" Little Sister's drummer, Bud, muttered he needed something from the van and disappeared to the kick drum beat of a slamming door. Penny, the bass player, rescued her Les Paul before making her own hasty retreat. "South by Southwest is only a month away. Label reps will be there," Jason said in an attempt to direct Andy's attention to what was important. Even he could detect the pleading tone in his voice. "No more fucking freebies," Andy said. She punctuated each word with a poke in his chest. Certain her sharp nails had left a mark, he backed up in an effort to de-escalate the situation. "You know the deal. Andre lets us practice here. In exchange, we play free gigs. It's a college birthday party. Big Bad Wolf freaked." "I don't give a shit." Andy flipped her blonde dreadlocks and snatched her leather jacket from the old couch in the corner. "Get yourself another girlfriend and lead singer, limp dick." She flipped him off and stomped out in a fog of black Phoenix perfume. He told himself her leaving again was a good thing, that he'd grown tired of the constant renegotiations. He hoped she'd gone when he got home. She usually was after one of her tantrums. "You're no prize yourself," he thought. "You get that, right?" Fishing his phone from his back pocket, he started to dial her cell to ask for his key back. That'll end it for sure. But as he watched the beer ooze down the cinder block wall, he reconsidered. "Well, that went over like the proverbial lead floating thing," Penny said, venturing a cautious return like a campus shooter threat evacuee after the all clear is given. With a relieved sigh, she threw herself onto the sofa and then cradled her bass in her lap. "What are we going to do about tomorrow night?" "You can sing." Bud flopped down next to her. "You've a great voice." "I can't." Penny bit her lip and focused on her bass. "I won't." Her black faded Barra bob was now in a natural shade of cotton candy pink blonde. She had an intense brown eyes that tended to wrinkle at the corners when she laughed. Short with a boyish build, her face made her look like a waif on stage. Often people, male people, Jason corrected himself, but that first impression formed their assessments of her skills. They were dead wrong, of course. She was a talented bassist, a whirlwind of energy. Raised Roman Catholic, she was uncomfortable with compliments, but Jason compared her to Flea behind her back. She handled a fiddle with equal skill, having started lessons when she was 3. She had a wonderful, clear singing voice too. Unfortunately, she refused to front. It was as if she needed her bass to shield herself from the audience. Jason had known her for 2 years and still didn't understand why she wasn't with a better band. Don't be stupid, he thought. You know why. Nonetheless, it was good for the band that she wasn't. If she left, that'd be the end. Andre, Penny's uncle, only supported them because of her. Her family was full of Savi Bohemians. Is it time?
1 minute warning. 1 minute warning.
Her family was full of Savi Bohemians and musicians who supported themselves via real estate. They owned property all over Central Austin, including the free practice space. So I'll stop there. But yeah.
Thank you very much. You have any links to anything you can post in the chat box for people to look at? Things to check out?
I still have my website, but I haven't. Let's see. I haven't updated it in a long time.
And if you haven't read the whole story, it is as fun as it sounds, and it's still really creepy. So it's both creepy and fun.
The name Montfray is actually stamped all over the sidewalks in Austin. And I've never been able to find out where that came from or what that was about until recently. Somebody recently put up the actual story. Everybody's been making up stories about Montfray for years.
How do you know this person is not just making up a story?
They probably could be, but it makes sense. It was a concrete company owned by a family who went out of business in like the 70s, I think.
Cool.
So anyway,
I like better.
My version better. Yeah.
Haunted is better.
So this was a really, really super fun evening. I believe we have time to give away 3 more books to our stalwarts who have been with us since the beginning, who are readers, who are not our authors. I have a number in my hands underneath the screen here, 1 through 10. If somebody who is listening in at home would like to guess that number in the chat window, we will send 3 books your way. So please go ahead and guess, everybody out there. Everybody,
it's not 3 this time.
It's not going to be 3. Nope, not yet. Keep looking. It's not 3. It's not 4. No. Keep guessing.
Oh.
No, there you go. 9. Congratulations, Tarver.
Thank you.
We'll send you books. Make sure we get your address.
Okay.
And it's actually good seeing you. I haven't seen you in years, man. How you doing?
Yeah. It's been,
it's been a while.
A little bit of time since we've seen each other.
You're in New York now. Are you in New York?
Yes, I am.
You are fortunate.
Yeah, bunkered down quite deeply. So
like you're in New York and then like you're not.
Yeah, exactly. You can't enjoy anything around here. So
that's terrible. Yeah. Well, you can enjoy some books. We'll send you some books. How about that?
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So good to see you all.
It's been I've had a wonderful time this evening. We don't have to like leave right away if y'all want to continue and chat. We can definitely.
I gotta get up at 8 tomorrow.
Yeah, us East Coasters are.
Yeah, my parents already went to bed, so I feel like I need to leave their house.
Thank you so much, everybody. We had a wonderful time and had a lot of fun. And it's wonderful seeing all your shining faces. This is probably the most human contact any of us has had.
I know, right?
It totally is.
Seriously.
Oh, I wore pants and everything, man.
I put lip stuff on.
Yeah.
I put fake eyelashes on. I figure what the hell.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I refrained from
Nice.
putting on my Wookiee costume, so you're welcome.
Actually would have been really fun. We would have supported that.
I could go rectify that. Like, if you have
Go get
2
the Wookiee.
minutes.
We'd love to see the Wookiee. Go get the Wookiee.
Yeah, be right back.
I've got to go, but you guys, this was fabulous. Goodbye.
Bye, Julie.
Bye.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Where is the recording for this going to live, Joe?
It's well, first it's going to live on my computer, and actually I should probably stop recording here in a minute. First it's going to live on my computer.
Stop
and then,
before I get back with the Wookiee costume on.
yeah, I got it. I think the
You can
Wookiee
start it again, you know.
Oh, really? But then, but it's going to go to the tube of you at some point. When I figure out how to do that, when we figure out how to do that. One of the great things about starting a small press is you think you know how the pipeline is going to work, and then things just keep surprising you. So, you know, it's a great way to learn a lot about pipelines. Oh, hooray! Hooray!
Yeah, I've already got half of the costume attached, so might as well put the rest on.
Yeah, all right. That looks fabulous. Thank you so much. That really made my night. Okay, this is our grand finale. The Wookiee costume is our grand finale. So thank you, everybody. And I'm going to stop recording right now.